Hello, my name is Dante, and you are watching Bliss Beings. And this channel is called Bliss Beings because, first of all, we are beings of bliss, coming to realize it. Bliss is our natural state of being when we get out of the way. And that bliss is how we connect to these many different beings beyond the veil and the extraterrestrials and hybrids that are coming to meet us and are already working with us on these energetic levels. They are at this higher vibration in a higher dimension and experiencing this bliss entirely. And so as we raise ourselves to that, we open ourselves for contact. And this is what I'm going to speak about in this video. So I made another video about my recent experience with plant medicine, and as I wrote a post about that, somebody asked, who are the hybrid beings? So I wanted to put a video about these beings and how we can maybe establish more of a clear connection to them. So, first of all, we are already hybrids, and hybridization is the most natural state of being, really, for most beings in the universe, that there's always this mix and match of different genetics and different strains of life. So, in order to understand this, you have to understand this idea of parallel realities. And this is not the only universe. This is not the only version of yourself. So every time you make a different decision, there's another version of you that makes the opposite decision. And there's actually a version of you that makes every single decision you could make in every different way that you could make it. So we're constantly splitting off into infinite parallel realities. There's infinite versions of you, whoever you are, expressing themselves in different ways. Same soul, different experience in a different universe. And I'll talk about how you can connect with those versions of yourself in another video to come. So the same is said about the collective, that every time our planet shifts its vibration in a certain direction, there are many different infinite versions of Earth that split off into different pathways and express themselves in different ways. And actually, on this timeline of Earth, and on many, there is a convergence between another timeline of Earth that went down a different sort of expression. And we could describe that expression as dominated by the intellect and the rational mind and technology. So this is one pathway that we're seeing expressed on our planet to some degree, though we are not going to go down that path. That's not our destiny. This group of beings became mutated, and they eventually cloned themselves. They became the beings we know to be the Greys. So the Greys are the most common beings in extraterrestrial abduction phenomena, and they are actually us, expressing themselves in a different way, in a different timeline. So the Greys destroyed their planet, they begin to mutate with their technology, and their focus was so much on the intellect and on technological sorts of expansion that they lost the ability to feel, they lost the connection to their own emotions, and this brought them on this sort of pathway of really being in a very toxic environment, being totally unable to reproduce. So they did develop very advanced technology, and the idea that technology will one day save us came true in their reality, because technology allowed them to come to find a version of Earth that would be a suitable place where they could hybridize, where they could mix their genetics with the other beings, and we were those other beings. So they came here because they read a frequency that made it compatible. They saw what was missing in them, which was love. And they met us, and they began to create these different races. So there are 5 hybrid races, and you can consider the Greys the first of those hybrid races, because again, they had to clone themselves up into the point of being the beings that they were. and that cloning process makes them the first hybrid race. The second hybrid race is also greys, but they are the tall greys. They are slightly more similar to us. The greys themselves are very short, very alien. They look quite similar to some of the depictions of aliens that you see with the very big eyes. And the tall greys are a little bit more similar to us, maybe seeming quite as ominous as the greys to people who don't, people like ourselves who weren't so accustomed to the world that they live in, the way that they see things. And again, because the Greys did not understand emotion, when they came to start the hybridization program, they could not understand that they were causing fear and terror in the people that they were abducting and taking genetics from. So a lot of the first experiences with the Greys were ones of great terror and confusion. Um, though actually all of that terror and pain is just the psychological effect that those who were abducted created, because there was nothing truly harmful done to them. There were implants put in the beginning, and as time went on and the hybrids were created, um, there was more advanced technology that was really just the altering of genetic codes so that our bodies became the tracking devices and they didn't need to put a technological tracking device within us. So the tall grays, the second hybrid race. The third hybrid race is the Essassani, or the Shikani, depending on the vibration you connect to when you meet them. And that is the group to which Bashar belongs. They are halfway between the Greys and ourselves. And then the next hybrid race you can call the Shayayao. And the fifth hybrid race is the Yayao. And the Yayao are also speaking through many channels now, very wonderful channels. And they are the keepers of the hybrid children that are the split between ourselves and the Yayao, and perhaps some of the other extraterrestrials as well, as part of the hybridization program. So at a certain point, when groups of us are ready at the vibrational level to receive these hybrid children, we will actually receive children on the planet. They will just really phase into this reality. It doesn't need to be a very big landing. People have already seen these children just pop into their living room and then fade out because it was quite startling, and their frequency is very high, and when we meet a high frequency being, it starts to bring up the unprocessed things within us. So they just got a little glimpse of these hybrid children, and then the hybrid children disappeared again. And eventually, when we're at a more stable frequency, or at least small communities are at a stable enough frequency to receive these hybrid children, they will land, and or they will again phase into reality. They will shift into reality and then start to grow among us. So up until that point, we have given our genetics to these different extraterrestrial races, and they made these children that are present on ships that we can connect to in a dream time, in a meditation, just by having that intention and speaking clearly. Okay, I want to know more about my own hybrid children, and following your own excitement, following what's most true to your heart in all ways. You'll put yourself in the space to be able to be at the most compatible frequency to meet them. I've seen my hybrid children in dreams and visions, and from what I gather, there's still quite some time and space until I'm able to meet them in more tangible ways. And yeah, I have a lot of work to do before that is ready. So I really recommend listening to Bashar's material about this, as Bashar is one of the first to put this out there and expose everyone to this information. Bashar's done a lot of channeling on this over the years, and there's been a recent one called The Five Hybrid Races that puts it all through in a very clear, concise way. Though it is also important for people like me to speak this information from a more human perspective, or from my own perspective, and for people like you watching the video who receive this information to start to share it as well in your own way, share your own take on it and what you experience about it, because this information is reaching the masses through everyone hearing it in some way, receiving it, and then taking it out and feeding it back into reality in their own way. Um, you can meet your hybrid children, you can tap into any of these races, any of the extraterrestrial races, just by keeping yourself focused on that frequency in a meditation, just asking for those beings to send you information. And one of the first ways that they'll communicate with you is by sensation, by a sort of change in your consciousness. As you adjust to their frequency, your frequency will change to be a more resonant match to theirs. You may see images, you may get a message, and as well, listening to channelings of these beings helps us to step into those frequencies as well. So listening to any of my channelings of the Pleiadian consciousness or any of the hybrid consciousness channelings out there would be a great way to start to tap into that level more. So we are becoming the sixth hybrid race, and all of these hybrid races are really stemming from the same human genetics that are here on the planet. So all human genetics trace back to this first hybridization, you could say, when the Anunnaki came here and they altered the genetic information of the primate beings who were here, who then evolved in their own way to become the Sasquatch, or the Bigfoot, and they exist on another parallel dimension to the Earth plane. Well, on the Earth plane, a parallel dimension to the human plane, a dimension that our vibration is not synced into enough, so we can meet them as well. And when our Earth ascends to be at that higher vibration, again, it's a more quasi-physical vibration that these hybrid beings exist at, and that the Sasquatch or Bigfoot exists at. We're going to meet all of them again, and we're going to meet even more beings than we can imagine. So these extraterrestrials, like the Syrians, Pleiadians, Hathors, and many others, have come here at times past to different civilizations, and they have, even in more recent times, extraterrestrials have come here and landed, though the people that have received that contact have not put the information out, or they put it out in a fear-based way because their vibration fully wasn't at the place of being totally compatible. There were still belief systems that after the initial experience distorted it, and then that information became fear-based and spread more fear-based consciousness about the hybridization. I did a channeling over the summer, and somebody was very frightened about this idea of hybridization and asked about the humans that will not cooperate with the hybridization agenda. So I don't really think that there's a way to not cooperate with this other than keeping yourself in such a resistant place that you shift into another dimension in which hybridization doesn't happen. So I'm speaking about the timeline that we are headed towards right now, though every individual is sovereign in their creation and can shift their frequency into a parallel timeline in which the hybridization program doesn't actually occur. And that's how powerful everyone is that you choose whether you take this information into your life and make it a reality or not. You can shift into a reality where it doesn't even happen. And that's what will happen for most people who resist this program. Not everyone is going to have their own being just shift into a different kind of human right away. Eventually, those of us who stay around for this will, yes, activate more of these dormant genetic markers that were placed in us by the Anunnaki when we were created. And they were dormant for a while, but now as we remember where we came from and remember more the gifts that we have, these genetic markers are activated, and we will literally become new beings as more of these things activate. Um, and as more of the hybrids land and more of the humans and the hybrids again cross-pollinate, we will become the sixth hybrid race. And this is, again, probably hundreds of years into the future, though we will have a greater sense of its becoming long before the point of which we fully blend with the hybrids that land on the planet. And at that point, we create a seventh hybrid race called the Anuhet that will contain the information and genetics from all six hybrid races, from the Greys to the humans and everyone in between. And this will bring out the best of all of the genetics that each individual expression, each individual race has brought forward, because every single race will have its own proclivities and their own talents and their own preferences and everything. And the Anuhet will be a completely different type of being that will express much more multidimensional abilities and things that we cannot even comprehend, other than we know that this is the trajectory we're on from the information that's been shared with us from many different channels. So it's very exciting times. And speaking a bit about hybridization again, so yeah, if you dive into a lot of Bashar's channelings, there's even more information on this out there. And we are as well related directly to these reptilian beings, and we have some of those same genetics within us. So there's a lot of fear-based ideas about the reptilians out there, and that is because there are many reptilians that are negatively oriented, that have negatively ascended, though that is not the case of all of these beings. And the Anunnaki themselves were a cross between many, many different beings that existed in their time, and these reptilian beings are part of them, part of that. So from this base alteration of the Anu, we received all of these different genes, and as we've spread ourselves out across the planet, the different environmental conditions on the planet activated within us different sorts of genetic markers and different sorts of, the different ways that the races on our planet express themselves physically were all part of what the Anu programmed into us, and part of the different races that contributed to the Anu as they were at that moment. So truly we are all hybrids, and all races out there are hybrids, and it just points us back to the fact that we are one. We are one with all of the different extra-terrestrial consciousness out there, and we must remember that we are the extraterrestrials to these other beings. How we express ourselves is very, very different to how they see things. And so they come here and we meet them in order to learn and grow and expand. And truly there's nothing to be afraid of in these moments of contact with our star family. So yeah, keep your heart open, keep your mind open, keep yourself excited, and expose yourself to more of this information and see the many different takes on it there are. And as you advance in your own connection, you'll have your experiences of connecting and contacting them yourself. It's an amazing, incredible journey. And yeah, thank you for watching and receiving this information and taking it with you. And I hope you have the best, most fantastic day ever. Thanks again for liking and subscribing and sharing these videos. Much love.